Friends, it's Pastor Mike again. I'm back with you today to talk about these verses that we've been looking at in Psalm 20. Again, these celebrations of what God had done in the life of the king and the people. He'd given them victory, and now they were celebrating in triumph, and they were singing the glory of God. They were saying, look, these victories that we have are not of our own. Listen to what he says. His glory, the king's glory, is great through God's salvation. Splendor and majesty God has bestowed on the king. For God has made him, the king, most blessed forever. God, you have made him glad with the joy of your presence. For the king trusts in the Lord, and through the steadfast love of the Most High, he, the king, shall not be moved. Those are great statements of faith and triumph and victory that the king is making. And yesterday we looked at the fact that that was really to put the spotlight not on the king, but the spotlight on God. And he continues here in verse 6 and 7. It says, for you have made him most blessed forever. And then the second half of that verse, in verse 6, is, you have made him glad with joy. God is doing a work. God is active. He has made some things happen for the king. And the king gets that. The king knows that this is not about him. He knows that he can't trust in chariots and horses. He's trusting in the name of the Lord our God. He's trusting in God to bring him victory, and God has done that. The king is trusting, putting his confidence, his assurance, his faith, putting it all in the Lord, Jehovah, the one who has done great things. He says, you make him glad with the joy of your presence. You make him most blessed forever. It's an interesting phrase, that God would make us blessed. That God would bless us. Or New American Standard in the margin note says that this phrase might be translated, for you make him a source of blessing forever. I love that thought. Blessed to be a blessing, right? The gifts that you've been given are really for you to turn around and then pour them out. And we are really thinking hard about ways that we can be creative in our community during this COVID-19, even as we come out, right? As we come out of staying in place, as we transition to reopening, we're going to begin to see that lots of people have been holed up and separated and isolated for a long time, and they've got some serious needs. If nothing else, they're going to need some encouragement. And so as God has blessed us, we get to be a blessing. God has turned us into a source of blessing. If the king had died, he would no longer be able to be a blessing, right? But he hadn't died. And so the fact that he had victory and salvation, and he'd been rescued, and he had victory, and he'd coming home to this ticker tape parade, and he was the hero of the day, was also that he could say, no, because I'm here, I'm going to pass out this blessing that God has given me. I'm going to distribute it. Why in the world would God make us a blessing? And doesn't that remind you of the verses in Psalm 8:4 that says, what is man that you care, that you take thought of him, the son of man that you care for him? That is a great thought, a great humbling thought to say, I don't deserve this. I'm broken down because God has blessed the socks off of me. But I don't deserve any of it. God has given it to me so that I might be a blessing to others everywhere. Everyone I meet. You have made me this blessed person. You have made me a source of blessing forever. You have made me glad with the joy of your presence. You've been with me throughout all this. If I get nothing else, if nothing else has been given to me, just simply the joy of going through life with all of its difficulties, with all of its troubles, and all of its blessings with God. See, the personal relationship of a believer, of the king with God himself, with brothers and sisters in Christ who have this presence of God with them. The Spirit who lives in us is the joy of the presence of God. We can come away with this thought that we are most blessed because we have been given the Spirit to dwell with us, to be our constant coming alongside paraclete. He is the one who is our helper. He's the one who is our comforter. He's the one who is the one who walks with us through the valley of the shadow of death, and we don't have to fear any evil, right? The Spirit is with us and makes us glad. He has done this, not because we're good, but because he's good. Now verse 7 begins with a really funny word. It says, for. And the wonderment is this a reason? Why is it that you have made him glad? Because the king has trusted in the Lord, we might say. Is the reason that God has made him glad in the presence, or made him most blessed, or made him a source of blessing forever, is the reason why God has done that making, that remaking, that restoration, that reclamation, that putting it back, is the reason that God has made the king glorious. Is it because the king has trusted in him? I kind of steer clear of that, because it seems to be that I can boast in the fact that I had enough trust in God, and therefore he was obligated somehow to give me these blessings, or to make me this blessing. Because I trusted, then he could do this. Again, some of it is, there is a reason. Well, let me think. The other way is to think, is this a result? Instead of a because the king trusts in the Lord, it's a therefore the king trusts in the Lord. Because God has blessed me forever, and because he's rescued me, and because he's made me glad with the joy of his presence, and because he's made me a blessing, because of all of those things, therefore I will trust in the Lord, or I do trust in the Lord. I'm not sure I kind of like that one so much as the fact that it seems like I'm trying to repay a debt. But if you kind of bundle those things together, and it's a tension, right? It's, I trusted in God before, he blessed me, and now I trust in him still, right? It's a before and after. It's a reason and a result altogether. The trust, the confidence that the king has in the Lord has made him feel this level of rejoicing, right? It's interesting over in Psalm 43, verses 3 and 4. It says, light and truth have led me. They come, you've given light and truth into my life to lead me and to bring me back to your holy hill, back to the temple, back to the God of my exceeding joy. That sounds like the joy of your presence, doesn't it? Right? The psalmist in Psalm 43 is just like this king. He's saying, look, you have led me all the way. You have brought me to this point of victory. And you've even brought me safely back to this spot to worship. Man, these verses are going to be so rich when we all get to be back in phase 4 of the reopening, when we all get to be back in the same space together, and we get to love on each other, and the coronavirus threat is over for now, and we begin to see each other in person again and celebrate here together in the congregation. We're going to be jumping up and down and praising God, because God is our exceeding joy, and he's brought us back together. Man, it's like we're exiles right now, right? We're living the minor prophets. We're living in exile, and we're wondering, what is God going to do? And it says, to God my exceeding joy, in verse 4, it says, I will praise you on the lyre. This is a jam session, right? Friends, I'm just saying, I can envision us getting back together on the first day that all of us can be in the same place at the same time and just singing for the entire hour service. Right? Just opening up our pipes and singing at the top of our lungs. Man, I hope it's warm and that we can open up the windows and that can spill out into our neighborhood. Because they need to know that we are confident that we have not come to this spot because we've had a perfect plan to make this work, that we are stronger, that somehow Christians have a better immune system, right? The reason why we're going to make it through coronavirus season, the reason why we're going to be blessed even in a time of isolation, is because God is good, and because his steadfast love, his loving kindness, verse 7 of chapter 21, Because of that, that is our confidence. And we will not be moved. Back in Psalm 43, verse 5 says, "Why are you in despair? Hope in God." The confidence is trusting God. Are you trusting in God today, friend? Are you finding that He is the only reason why you exist, and He's the only pleasure of your life? He's the deepest thing that matters. He is the relationship that brings you the greatest joy. And that because of His faithfulness and His steadfastness and His love towards us, we are blessed and we trust in Him. We do not have to be discouraged. Are there things that upset us? Yes. Are there things that make us nervous? Yes. Are there things that cause us to go, I don't know how this is going to work out? Yes. But we can trust God. And we can become, as Psalm 125:1 says, we can be like a mountain, immovable, unshakable. In fact, a holy mountain, a place where we worship God. Friends, don't let this isolation time be a time of panic and distrust and anxiety and just sullenness in your spirit. Let it be a day of rejoicing. God is your refuge and a very present help in time of trouble like now. And when He brings us through and brings victory, we can sing like this king, "Oh God, it's about you, and the King still trusts in you. You're still it. God, you're the focus of my attention." Well, friend, will you make Him the attention of your eye and your heart, of your song? May all your day today be a day of expressing trust in God, whether He has blessed you or He will bless you, whether it's a reason or a result. Keep trusting God. Well, friends, I hope that's true of you. Trust God today. Be a blessing wherever you are. Use the victory that God has given you to pour out on people. Be the source of blessing so that others can see that you serve a good God and that they may be included as well by faith in Jesus Christ. Until I see you again tomorrow, friends, be well and blessings on you. Be at peace because God can be trusted. Be a mountain, be a rock for those around you because God is your rock. Till tomorrow, I'll see you then. Bye-bye.